Hello. Let's see if everything is working here. I'm curious if anyone can actually hear the music I'm listening to. I'm doing an experiment today. And then say hello if you're on. It's been a little bit, so I think I'm doing it right, but let me know if you can't hear me or what's going on. Got some coffee today. Can anyone hear the music that I'm listening to right now? Oh, hey. Good morning, Magda, but I know it's your afternoon. Hello. Can you hear the music I'm listening to? How many times can I ask that question? Oh, and I forget about the delay. Good morning. Okay, interesting. Oh, you can hear the music. Well, it's like the really gentle piano music. And I'm like, is this good music for me or not? Or I'm just gonna be like, how's everyone doing? Let's just enjoy the moment. I may or may not keep it if you can hear it. I think for me, it's just nicer because I forget that I'm the only one talking sometimes, so good. I've got my orange shirt, like the sun, even though the sun is not shining outside here in the Pacific Northwest, it's a bit of a overcast day, but let's see. Interesting, some people can hear the music and some people cannot. This is like a psychological test. I'm like, "What picture do you see? Can you hear the music?" I promise this isn't like some trick test that I'm trying to do. And I haven't actually sat over here. This is where I usually, sit a lot of times when it's warm outside, but since it's been so cold outside, and this is right by a window, and so this is, like, very, retro. It's, like, so summer of me to sit over here in this corner by my sculpture that I created that I love. I think the chat's pretty delayed today, so I'm gonna do my best, but if you do have questions, feel free to ask them. I will do my best. Sometimes I get on a twirl. I think I'm gonna have to turn the music off because it's like okay, there we go. Oh, wow, hello from London. That's so cool. Good afternoon, evening. I guess it's probably closer to evening now there. It's just 10 AM here. It's pretty oh, Hungary, wow, cool. I have a really good friend in New Zealand, so it's pretty funny because at this time of the year, we're only 3 hours apart, but she's an entire day ahead, it's, 21-hour difference, but it's pretty cool because she's so far ahead, I'm almost a full day behind, so anyway. Alright, Europe is really representing, indeed. We gotta bring let's see what other places we can get on board. I did this time get some questions, ahead of time, but again, if y'all have stuff, let me know. Let's see. I wish Rosie was here because she asked about self-abandonment, which what a light topic to start this conversation off. Maybe we should start with something lighter. Does anyone here have a question? Oh, and the other thing too hang on just a second. I've got to clear my throat and prepare my voice for this afternoon chat for some and morning chat for me. But yeah, I wonder why the chat is like really far behind, I'm thinking. So anyway, um, but I'm just gonna say it before and I'll probably say it afterwards. I don't know if I've shared it as much on the channel as I have with like the inner circle, which is the newsletter. But I over the past 3, 4 months, I've been working on my course, and so it's almost ready. It's actually ready, but it's just in the beta testing. But if you're interested in learning more about the course I just created, which basically brings all the ideas and the concepts I talk about on the channel into one place and takes you through in a very simplified, intentional sequence so that you can help get this the most. I'm gonna put that link in there, and if you are interested, you go to the link and then you can get even more information. But I wanted to say that before I forgot, and it's over, and then I was like, I forgot to do that thing. Um, Oh, Magda, you and me with the beliefs, you and me. I am so obsessed with it because it really is amazing that if you change your belief, you'll change your life. But then the question becomes, how in the world? Oh, thank you so much. I'm excited to chat with you about your experience with the course. I'm so glad that you're enjoying it. I got to definitely go through my own experience of creating the course of like, it was very much like this. And that's another thing too, is I think to understand when you're changing a belief, it's going to be really uncomfortable because even though you have this desired experience of a relationship or money or being this new way in the world, you don't actually have experience. So it's going to actually register in your body as uncomfortable. It could be scary. You can maybe be a little anxious. So understanding that conceptually with your mind and giving your body that experience, because we can, on YouTube is an incredible platform, understand and hear these concepts and they're in our head, and that's good because you want your conscious brain to understand it, to kind of see the roadmap. But you've got to allow your body to go through experiences so your body can learn. Your mind is there on YouTube learning, but your body has to go through the experience. But a lot of times, we can have kind of those outdated protection mechanisms, which can feel like, oh no, no, I can't do this. Well, I wish I could do it like that person, but not really understanding that everyone's different for one, but two, there are going what the experience you're looking for, the path there might look a lot different than you think it will. And that would be very true for me creating the course. Like this time last year, I was scared to even do an email letter, a newsletter. I was like, oh my gosh, and just really in my head about it, which seems funny in hindsight. But to fast forward now, like creating the course, there's a lot of moments I'm like, what am I doing? How can I do this? This feels too much. This feels overwhelming. Do I even have the tools to do this? What if it doesn't work? What if it doesn't help? All of these things, but allowing myself to feel it and then keep taking, okay, what else could I do here? All right. So really with beliefs, I think, especially when you start to change them, it's who's in the driver's seat, the fear or that new you. And that new you can sit in the passenger seat wanting something different, and fear's like, don't worry, I know where to go. And it circles back the car and it goes right back to that set point of whatever you perceive yourself should be or who you were told to be. Let's see. Started learning about creating my reality about 10 years ago. However, I keep forgetting what I already learned. I have to remind myself periodically. Why do I keep forgetting how the universe works? Well, I mean, that's an interesting thing too, is okay, I've been reading this one book for like a year and a half. It's very hard for me to read and on one part, but on a second part, it's like I know that as I'm reading it, I get what I need when I need it. So really trusting life more. But they have something, and I could be mistaken on the term they called it, but I think it's called blind sight. So somebody who literally had some sort of accident and they can no longer see, they've done these different tests where, I don't know, they'll put like a pin somewhere they briefly talk about in the book, not like the actual thing, but from my understanding, like they'll put a pin somewhere. So the person who can't see, and I mean, we're talking like legally cannot see, like this is not like somebody faking it, they will be asked to do something instinctually and they'll go right to the thing. So basically the idea is that like the eyes actually work, the brain's just not allowing them to see. Okay, I'll say that again. It is known in different scientific studies that people who cannot see with their eyes, their brain is actually able to pick up because their eyes work, but they can't access it like real time, which is this whole thing. So why I bring that up, which is actually funny because right now my camera on my phone doesn't work, but if I open an app like Instagram or another like connection app, the camera works on that one. So it really kind of an interesting parallel. But to get back to your question, why don't you remember it? Well, as part of that information, if you took it in, you have taken it in, so part of your brain remembers. But if you're like, oh no, no, if I actually change my life, maybe my friends will judge me. Maybe my family will outcast me, especially if you maybe grew up in a religious situation, or is there any perceived danger from your current connections? Remember how like emotional connections with others is gonna be very important, being in a community, right? To get those needs met that you can't on your own. So if you do something and apply this information, is what pops up? What bad thing could happen if you took what you've learned over the past 10 years, reading that book 50 times? If you applied it, if you got the amount of money, if you were financially free and weren't stressing, would you feel you don't relate? Or that maybe the people who are around you who maybe struggle financially, would they then see you or judge you? Starting to look at the protection mechanisms that could be going on, or why your one part of your brain is holding information and maybe, it's there, but it's holding it back because maybe it's trying to protect you. And again, you can shift that when you become aware of it. But if when you were a little kid, you saw somebody, and maybe it's like, oh, rich people are bad, or oh, that's for them. I heard a lot of that when I was growing up. That's, those people on that side of town, like the good side of town, and that wasn't anything bad or good at the time, but what I perceived, was we're not them, and, "Oh, they're more selfish. Oh, they get what they want, and, oh, is that bad?" As a kid, you're trying to, like, make sense of all this stuff constantly, like, what is this? My friend recently was teaching her kid about money, and, like, that's a whole thing, a concept we have to teach 'cause at, um, if you're just born, you're like, "Well, what is this? This is just like a little piece of metal or whatever it's made out of now." But you don't understand, and then we have to learn, and that's all conditional based on that early on environment. What models were you taught? So that's what I would think of in terms of why you have to keep reminding yourself. And also too, who are you being? Do you give yourself permission to apply that information, or are you waiting for something to happen, or waiting for that divine serendipitous moment where it's like, okay, now I can apply it? Because it seems like it's waiting, that there's, like, the start button hasn't been pushed, because if you were implementing it, you wouldn't forget because 'cause you're actually doing it. Okay, does every time I learn about it, new puzzle pieces are added to my understanding too. Yeah, and also too, it can add, like, if you have a skeleton of a structure and then you start adding to it, it's the same structure, but it's getting deeper in terms of your understanding and the depth of your knowledge and how you can apply it. And even our lessons or our experiences can be somewhat cyclical because we're going deeper. I've heard it described as a downward, or sorry, an upward spiral like staircase. You might get kind of the same themes coming up, but you're going to experience them at a deeper level or a higher level of perspective, which will help you really heal, and understand yourself better ultimately. Okay. The lovely delayed chat. But thank you for that question. I hope that that makes sense. Hello. Oh, there I go again with my welcome, welcome. Hello, I am Queen. Yeah. Well, I mean, the thing that first comes out, it says I'm like acting like everyone's reading what I'm reading. It says, "Hi, Abby. I've been working 2 years. It's been almost 2 years, and I'm working very hard on self-concept for 3 years. So very hard. I think there's also this idea of, you know, just really starting to understand, and there's no good or bad. It's just neutral. But if you understand it more, you can make a better choice of what you're looking for, and also the attachments of what would it mean. If I had this thing that's not with me, it's separate. If I had it, then I would feel what I want to, but I don't have it, so I'm separate from it. So were you taught, were you shown, did you experience in your life that what you wanted was really hard and almost impossible, or just like you had to bend over backwards and struggle to even get a grasp of it? Starting to look at the models of what you were shown or experienced early on when you didn't have, because think about a kid. I was listening also to, the idea, like, and I've talked about it in my videos of, like, parentals or caregivers are kind of like on a pedestal, like kind of gods. And we really do take whatever they're saying as like law, because it is a lot of times like you have to literally abide by those laws. But at the time, you're like, oh, this is how it is. And when you see it as an adult and you see all these different experiences, you're like, oh, that is one way to do it. That was one experience, but that doesn't mean that that's the way that it is in the world. So the other thing too, so you say, I'm like, see, I'm already getting a little all over the place. Let's see. I am super happy with the new me, which is wonderful, but it would be nice to have him in the 3D also. So again, thinking about what end emotion would that give you? Because the more you can attach to that, the more you can amplify it in yourself, the more the universe, God, source can bring you experiences that would match that. But if it's attached, and again, this is like, I guess, the catch 22, I don't know what it would be, is the more you detach from it being that way and more tap into in here, the more likely it will match up with you. That doesn't mean that it can't be with that person, but the attachment there continues to give it a different energetic, I guess. And then also too, if you feel separate from it, that you can't do it on your own, it's going to put you in that, in my opinion, an early on dynamic of, okay, well, I'm in this environment and I'm helpless to get what I need unless that person says yes, approves of me, accepts me, loves me, that sort of thing. Okay. Hello. I'm guessing Jose. I don't know how to say your last name yet, but let me read this. Sorry about the throat this morning. Okay, Hi, hey Abby. I've been thinking about taking your course. I struggle a lot with fear of judgment from others. I'm 23 and also have cancer diagnosis. It makes this kind of thing 10 times harder. Yeah. Well, I'm sorry to hear about the diagnosis. The one thing that I would say about that first part is, again, looking at that early on environment. So if you were around people who were emotionally unavailable, emotionally, they didn't consider your experience, and also too just that judgment, because I guess where my mind went with it is, if I'm judged, I'll be rejected. And so really getting on to the big fear, which would be, okay, judgment, but it's not necessarily, in my opinion, that judgment. It's what would happen if they did judge you. Alienation, being separate from getting, having your needs met, stuff like that. So can you identify what bad thing or what end result of the judgment? Because it's understandable, and most likely you had some sort of archetype or pattern early on. I call it like an energy frame where you were judged or criticized, about how you were, what you did, and maybe part of it was even like not in your control, maybe how you look or something like that, or maybe just how you do something naturally in the world, and that was said, no, you can't be that way. And so then it's like, okay, well, if I, like, it basically fragments. So I don't know if that's registering. If you can let me know, that would, again, we're in a big delay, so you might have already texted it or typed it, and I don't know. Okay, so in the meantime, while I'm waiting for you, Jose, about the rest of that to see if that's tapping into anything, I'm going to go back to I Am Queen. So, Abby, maybe it's the belief I have in relationships in general. How do I change them? Well, you got to first know what they are. How do you change something? You got to be aware of what the issue is. And there's a Shaolin monk that said, that I had the quote. I actually have it in one of the worksheets of the quote of the course, but the quote was basically like, you have to locate a problem to be able to adjust it. So maybe it's a belief I have in about relationships in general. Okay, let's go into that. Taking away of this romantic partnership, because romantic will, push up that early on model that you were shown, that template of how relationships work. So if you had to like put it all in there and work really, really hard, then you're going to take that. And the closer it gets to you, which would be romantic relationships, the more that's going to be push up that relational trauma. Um, so how do you change it? Well, what is it? How do you change? We got to first become aware of what it is. So you can just start, Gabor Mate, compassionate inquiry. Okay, what is it that I believe? Let me try to phrase this. Who do I have to be in order to have relationships with people? What do I have to do to maintain relationships with people? Do I have to go 90-10? Oh, wait a second. What is that reminding me of? Have I ever felt I had to go 90-10? Oh, okay. So that habitual, yeah. So probably boundary crossing in childhood, which, that's understandable that you have trust issues. Probably you were shown that certain people aren't trustworthy and maybe they take advantage of you. And, those are those energy frames, that energetic cycle. Um, so, also too, as a kid, you're not able to take care of yourself. You're not able to seek safety. And I was actually talking with somebody about this the other day of, and in the course I talk about this too, because I think it's really important is, you know, uh, in like regular language, it's just like attachment styles, but just like in understanding energy. So if you had trust issues, somebody crossed your boundaries too, um, I'm like, what is this over here? They came too close, they crossed your boundaries in some way, you'll want to try to keep your distance in those ways. But as opposed to maybe people went too far away from you as a kid, then you'll be more prone to want to go towards. So starting to understand those, because the whole thing about it is like the energy dynamics of that. So imagine that somebody went too far away from you when you're a kid. Well, you're more likely, in my opinion, and from my experience and things I've seen, is chase people, right? Oh, okay, because you were shown that, or you saw that as how relationships work. So you self-abandon to go do the thing because of the past. But just the same as you could do the trust issues because of the past, but it's still, both of those are still self-abandonment, even though they look differently. A very long-winded way to say that, but I did. Okay. I have three belief. I'm struggling to shift. Okay. Yeah, and trust is a big deal. Like I used to think that I did trust myself, but I didn't. I was so focused on people outside of me. So really, courage, I believe it's courage. Or no, it's confidence. Confidence has to do with trusting yourself. I believe courage has to do with like heartfelt. Um, but if you do lack in confidence, that's one thing, learning how to really trust yourself. Where is my loyalty when something comes up? For me in the past, my loyalty was with that, I would self-abandon. So I didn't have that loyalty with myself. So how could I trust myself if when I needed me most, I turned my back on me unconsciously? It was a survival instinct, thinking that that's how I got my needs met. But at the end of the day, really looking at the energies and seeing that, accepting it, loving myself and seeing, oh, I was doing the best I could. But that model of how I got my needs met was just really hurtful to me. Let's see. Yes. Well, again, here I go. I'm just like commenting without sharing what I'm reading. I'm working on the idea that there's a different energy frequency bubble where I can live with my dreams fulfilled before seeing it reality. Yeah. And just as I was saying earlier about like literally the brain, or sorry, the mind, so the mind is more of the perceptions and that sort of thing. So you literally, just as I talked about blind sight, where people whose eyes don't work, their mind actually can still utilize it, but you're not consciously aware of it. Your mind literally blocks out so much of what exists right now. And maybe some of those clues, um, Lucia, about that new world you want to create, they could actually kind of be in your peripheral or right in front of you. And you will literally do this, not because you don't like yourself, but because there could be some element of danger. For one, it's outside of your comfort zone. You have to like go over the city walls of you. And so, the first thing would be, starting to ask yourself, am I really like willing to change? Not change, getting your needs met, not change what you're wanting, but change how you've been being. Change those thoughts and the feelings, and literally the habitual feelings that you've been in, because that can also feel uncomfortable, even if it's working towards what you're really wanting to create in your life. It's a very interesting thing. Like Vitalizing Simple Truths is such a good book because it shows how the brain blocks out things so that you can kind of maintain and protect yourself. But it'll block out things, and you haven't even have these things, which I think are so funny. I was calling them lucinas, but they're lacunas. And every time I'm like, lacuna matata, like that's all I think. But a lacuna is like a blind spot, a gap. Like, why cannot look at that? And a lot of times too, if you have like big gaps from that childhood, your mind is trying to protect you, but how it's doing that and where it's taking you in that protection can be very limiting. So again, that cage that kept you safe is now creating that limitation and prison, what you're feeling. I want this new thing consciously, but unconsciously it's not, no, 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 this is the only way we can stay safe. Here I go again, not reading and just not talking and just reading. Okay. Maybe this will work. Yeah, changing radio stations is a good thing because literally that's what it is. I mean, recently I've had some experiences come up where I can tell that normally I would have like stressed out. Oh, John M., you're at the perfect time. Come on in. um, but same situation outside, right? Where I'd be like, oh, I should be stressed at this. Okay. And then, the old self would have like a scroll of all the thoughts. But I saw it again, every situation's neutral. And because I've done some shifts recently in terms of how I see myself, in terms of taking that action that I didn't previously see myself as taking, or I thought it'd be too hard, or it would, I didn't have what it took to do those things if those things come up. Since I did that, the way I saw this neutral situation, even though in the past it would cause all these stress and ideas, I saw it like, oh, okay, that's happening. Okay. So I was able to energetically be in a different place, even though the same, trigger, if you will. So that's one thing to keep in mind as well. Okay. Oh, I love you. I love it when y'all talk to each other. It's just so sweet, especially in like comments and stuff. It really, it's very heartwarming. It's very like that emoji with the little tear bubbles or bubble tears, I guess you'd say. Um, Thank you for all the love. Let's see. So for I am queen, I would just look at what end emotion do you feel like you'd have with that? Because that hyperfixation, and again, I'm using that word because of my experience, not saying that's what you're doing. But when I was doing that, it's because I felt I couldn't have that emotion unless that person was in my life. So what I needed to do was like, oh, okay, well, that would make me dependent on this person. So I've got to get clear. Oh, I feel like if I'm not in this relationship, then and then just maybe there's five things, maybe there's three things. But a lot of time I feel like that effort to bring this person in is ignoring a part of you that's signaling, we need this, we need this, we need this. And it's how to do it is the person out there, but really how to do it is here. And that was really annoying for me to hear personally. So I understand if you're like, no, but, and that's not to like stop you from getting what you're wanting, a loving, secure relationship. That's actually how to do it, if that makes sense. Hey, Allie, I have your question here about the persistence. I was waiting to see. Let's see, but you have another one. Can having gratitude help, like focusing on even the smallest things? Absolutely, because think about, I mean, Dr. Joe Dispenza says gratitude. If I had gifts for all of y'all and I handed it over to you, and you're like, "Wow, thank you for this. I have this in my experience, so I am grateful for it." And I forget the ins and outs of how Dr. Joe describes it, but that means you're in the state of receiving, of having, of that completion. And this is kind of going off a little bit of what I was saying to I Am Queen about that. What is that end emotion? Because when you're seeking it, when you're desiring it, desire is a good start. But if you stay in desire, you're staying literally, if you look up at the etymology, it's about lack. Like you don't have this. I can't desire a pen. Oh, I'm like, let's be real, coffee. If I have coffee, I am not absent from it, so I don't desire it. So with gratitude, being grateful and also your heart. I was going to talk about this too, is if y'all, I haven't talked a lot about brain heart coherence, but it's really, really important. Your heart actually has more I believe, more connections to your brain. So your heart's sending more information to your brain than your brain does your heart. So when they're out of sequence, when you're in those really stressful situations and you're looking at this event and you're like, oh, let me get the past here, and you just insert all the negative things, which are going to perpetuate the blinders of seeing anything different, you're going to stay energetically in the stamp of the past. When gratitude can really come in, it can help you regulate and start tapping in from your heart and your mind. One thing to do this, just before I forget to say it, is I'm not like a big, my dad's really big into like sci-fi, and I grew up watching Star Trek and Twilight Zone, but he loves those kind of movies, and I do enjoy them. But Iron Man, right? Iron Man has that giant I forget, it's his energy pack, I forget what happens. He just has the giant glowy thing, right? So that's what I think is oh, yeah, thank you, TA. Gratitude is the ultimate state of receivership. So if you're receiving something, it's the opposite state of desiring. But one way to kind of start getting into your heart would be to breathe through your heart. So again, I kind of envision and visualize that part of my heart just glowing and actually breathing rather than focusing breathing in and out my mouth or in my nose and out my mouth. I actually focus through the heart. This can help you literally start to regulate and start to, relax. But when you're thinking about, somebody you really love or something you really had wonderful that experience, that sort of thing. And like you were saying, Allie, yes, even the smallest things, you can slam on a light or you can barely tap it on. In the end, the light is on. So with gratitude, it's on or it's on. It doesn't really necessarily matter what triggers the gratitude. Obviously, you can continue to grow it. But if you stay in that habit of being grateful, you're in their state of receivership. So, that's something I feel like is not often talked about is and that's something I'm working on is receiving. I'm like, oh, let's go out and do and work really hard. And no, wait, okay, you actually have to receive something. So anyway, there's that. Okay, so John M. So I hope that answers your question, Ali. Oh, and the other thing I wanted to go off of your question that you posted on the community board, persisting in a new state. What would well-behaved kids mean to you? What would having well-behaved kids mean about you? Um, that was one part that I wanted to ask you about that. Because part of it is understanding, okay, I want this thing to happen. And this actually is kind of going off of John M's question, but I want this thing to happen. But what would it mean about you? What does it mean to not have it? Starting to understand really what's kind of fueling it, to understand you better. The better you understand yourself, the more you can kind of detach from these reflectors that are trying to help you understand yourself more. But ding, I need some sound effects in here. Okay, John M., how not to worry about the future, especially when you really want something to happen? Well, if you want your future to look different than your current situation, you actually don't know how it will happen. Your intel is based on what you've experienced. So automatically, something you don't know what it's going to look like. So when you start to worry, for one, actually, I was going to do a video about this. If this, I'm going to try to do my best to recreate the idea and I'll do a video in the future. But if this is your cup of energy, okay, and this actually goes off of, oh gosh, I didn't write your name down. Hang on a second. James, this going off of James's comment about getting into the meditative state. And it made me think of James when you asked the question about, because you're saying like get out of the, I know you're really creative, you get a lot of ideas, but if you're going to bed or if you're just spending your day and you're like, oh, worried about the future, for one, it's only based on the past. So you're still in the energy of the past. And so you have this cup of energy, all the cup. This is the energy, the go-go juice to create the new future, to see things from a different perspective and imagine. Okay, we got to put our imagination hats on. And I'm worrying. So I start pouring this go-go juice out because of worrying. But worrying is only in the energy of the past. So I'm still in the energy of the past, but I'm losing energy to devote to starting to doing the work to shift my perspective. So going back to you, John, about how to not worry about the future. Well, for one, what bad thing are you fearful that would happen? Because also, two, if you're in a state of something bad's going to happen, and if I can figure it out before it happens, then it won't happen. But you kind of take yourself out. Brene Brown talks a lot about this, and I just heard it recently about like, I don't want to be vulnerable. I don't want to be vulnerable to pain or hurt. But when you do that, you actually reduce your ability to actually be in the opposite of that, excitement, joy, something new happening. Now, I'm not saying go out into the world like a turtle with no shell on, but also, too, if you're in your shell all the time, you can't experience because you're wanting to do it in this protective bubble. So, who do you need to be to feel that you've got your back? So, I would say self trust, really starting to build that. What ways do you show up for yourself daily? How can you start taking action? What beliefs do you need to have? That future you who's in that safe, ideal world, who, if something happens, they can handle it. So, what do you feel you might not be able to handle right now that's hiding in your future that's going to jump out and overtake you and send you into some terrible place? That's the kind of things that I would start asking you to look at because it's the illusion of the future. But if you're afraid of the future, it's not the future, it's something bad happening in the future that I can't prepare for. But what part of your life did you perfectly plan? All of y'all, really, where it went exactly according to plan. Very rarely does that happen where it's like boop, boop, boop. Something comes along, and the more you trust yourself and the more you cultivate your skills, where whatever happens, I can deal with it and I have support to deal with that. And I know that whatever I go through, I'm going to learn from it. And actually, I'll be better in the future from it, if that makes sense. And if that makes sense. Let's see. Okay, Joe. What do you believe is the most misunderstood about world class athletes? That they're born with some talent that only a 0.00001 people possess. Now, I will say that some people, and that they don't work hard. And a lot of times it's like, oh, I wish that would have happened to me. And yes, I do feel like there is a physical component to world class athletics. But I would say from going from high school to college, those people, it was a lot about work ethic. A lot of people who possess the ability to potentially go into college athletics, it was like work ethic, not really putting in that. And again, your kids at that age, like then in college, it started to be about having an effective like program, but also self-belief and believing in the people around you, believing in the system. I would say from to go to high level college athletics would be believing in the system that you're in, the process, the program, believing in the process would probably be it. Now, from college to world class, it is mental. Like, I'm like, at the time, maybe I was pushing 5'8". I don't know that for my European friends. And I was probably about 200 pounds, 90 kilos. My competitors were 5'10", 6 foot, 260. The one thing that I really felt I had, for one, is consistency, persistence, and just tenacity. I just kept going, kept going, kept going. You know how many times I failed in athletics? Like way more times. There's a lot of times where it would be very logical to stop and to quit. But I just kept going because there's just something, and really, I guess I believed in myself. It's like, oh, I just feel like there's this little like kind of whisper, very tiny. I can't even hear what it's saying, but it's there. So the thing that I feel is misunderstood is how sharp their mental game is. It's less about the physical talents, because there's a lot of people who didn't do well in college athletics who were like enormously physically talented, but believing in the process, committing to the process, and then having that mentality. That's really my experience with it. Because I wasn't the strongest, I wasn't the tallest, biggest, I didn't have the best technique, but I do feel like my why was big, because I wanted to do it for the people around me. I wanted to like kind of lead, show by example, that sort of thing. So I don't know if that answers your question, but that's what came up just now. Okay, let's see. Oh, Roger Bannister, yeah. Yeah, and that's the thing too, is that high level athletics, you don't spend a lot of time actually physically you can't be in the peak level of output for very long. So for me, even, I now my training looked different, but, like, in the weight room at the max, like, there were years where I spent 3 hours in a weight room, and my performance was down. So this is a great, objective example that working harder does not effort isn't a it's not about effort. You need to put out effort, yes, to put the work in, to use your willpower to shift, but a lot of it is gonna be about self-belief. So my training sessions when I was throwing were maybe 40 minutes and probably only 20 minutes at that of high level performance, and then that was kind of it. And you listen to yourself, you listen to your body, what do you need? The more you know yourself, the more you know what you need. It'd be like going to one of your best friends and they're like, "I'm hungry." And imagine they couldn't tell you what they wanted, but you know them well enough, you go in a store, you can get some stuff that they like, as opposed to it's a perfect stranger and you're like, "Okay, well, I'm gonna give it a go." The more you know yourself and get into those shadows and those parts of you that are hurting, that need your help, and they need your adult self to help relieve them, to help cut those old energies and upgrade to your own authority. Yeah. Um, okay. Let's see. Faux fauna. Let's see. Follow. Is there a good method to shift your focus and energy from a less beneficial state to a more abundant one? Okay. For me, the drastic difference is a big jump. Is there a smoother way to transition from negative thoughts to positive one? I would really love a video on how to do that. It's not really jumping out on like, I think I'm still not grasping how you're meaning it. But for one, it would be, so one thing would be like, okay, what was I just thinking about? Like, okay, so say you're like in a negative thought loop, and this is, something you could try, but can you start to be aware of what triggered that? Maybe you were watching a show and then they started doing, I don't know, they're starting to talk and maybe they're getting in an argument on there and then you take that energy and then you start having negative thoughts. Maybe it's, oh, I have to go to work today. But, like, can you start getting in there and recognizing before, because preventative is gonna be ideal. Like, duh, like, don't fall in the hole. Don't twist your ankle, duh. But how can you do that more systematically? Can you start being aware? Maybe it's a location, maybe it's you drive past a place where you had a bad experience, and then that's signaling it. So, can you just be more aware of what is sending it off? What is kind of releasing or pushing that first domino. Breathing is going to be really good because when you go to, like right now, we're doing good. We're on the internet. Maybe you have some sort of drink by you. You're safe, dry. Hopefully, you have got some food, right? But like in the big picture, we're doing good right now. So, those emotions associated with right now would be we're alive. This is good. This is great news we're experiencing. But if right now you're feeling anxiety or you're feeling resentment, well, those are past echoes. So starting to be aware of that, oh, right now I'm good. Right now, and the more you stay in your body, because it's kind of hard because I don't know the exact details, but to kind of jump in there, Fofana, like something's getting wrung from the past, some kind of old story. So what can you starting to be more just aware in your moment. I got to be in my body because when I'm not in my body, I start like a ghost leaving myself and going to a different energy, something that happened in the past. It's valid that you had that experience, but you keep replaying it even though it's not now. So how can you start to be more in the moment? Maybe you have a mantra, maybe you have a timer on your phone, right, every hour, and maybe that has some kind of abundance and gratitude, if that makes sense. So, how can you more systematically help remind yourself and stay conscious more throughout the day? Because I'm imagining those lower level ones, you're retrograde, you're kind of blacking out and going somewhere else. You're going sometime else, if that makes sense. That would be my um, input. Oh yeah, Abraham Hicks talks about bridging beliefs. Yeah. And that's the thing too, is it starts in your head, right? You have to conceptually, in my opinion, well, this is what's helped me is to kind of see the big map. Oh my God, the reason I was holding on to this belief is because it was formed when I was a kid in an environment and I trusted the people around me and what I perceived they were telling me was this. So this is true. This is truth. This is like a truth of the universe. Oh, wait a second. Oh, okay. I see these situations differently. Oh, I can see their experiences differently. Oh, I can see this is just my perception of it. So, this whole belief, this root of this whole system that's expressing in so many different ways. Oh, I am good enough. Oh, okay. And as you can just start to see that, you can let go of it. And that can start opening you up, or you can start considering the new belief, but it's also going to have to be about your body. And in the course too, I have challenges where it's like starting to move in the world in a new way, even if it feels uncomfortable. Don't go to a 10, but start with a 2. What's something you're like, "Ooh, I'm a little bit nervous. I'm thinking about that thing I have to do." Okay, and then trusting yourself that you can do it. And the more you stay in your body and with yourself and breathe and realize that success is just about trying something new, because the body, it's going to be really important for your body to experience it so it can learn too. Because if it stays in your head, but your body stays in your past, well, the subconscious is going to overrun it because it doesn't know that it's safe. What is the intuition? Is it coming from the subconscious mind or from my thoughts? I don't think it's coming from either. I think intuition comes from a higher source. You could say higher self, God, source, universe. I guess higher self would be the one that I would say would probably be it. So you're getting this information coming outside. I mean, I guess you could say it's a seed coming inside. I don't know, but I don't think, it's either your thoughts or your mind. I think it's from a higher level of, you know, existence. And intuition whispers. I think Steven Spielberg said that your ego screams, and that's the thing too of like, who do I need to be? And who is this kind of personality? Because that's the thing too. If you can start to just to consider, okay, what if part of how I am in the world was actually how I learned to be? And when I keep doing this, it maybe is a bit, it's not in my integrity. I am not, I maybe self-abandoned when I was nice person, right? When I would go out of my way to do these nice things to people so that they would like me or so that they would see me of value. Well, I thought that if I was this nice person, it would bring me this thing. Now, it's not to say I'm an asshole. I guess that's depending on who you ask, but I, being this other person of how I thought I had to be, starting to say, "Oh, well, that's not actually me. That's who I thought I had to be." So, those kind of things like subconscious mind and the thoughts and stuff, I think that those are like in our bodies. And the more we dissolve them, the more we're open to really our truest self, which I think comes in seeds from our intuition, would be the best way I would say it. That I understand now. Okay. Hello, Toots. I find myself doing the same pattern. It finally came to me, my mother. I live in a beautiful home. Then my mother would sell the house. Are you saying, I'm not quite understanding that one, but are you saying, I'm trying to read it again. I find myself doing the same pattern. So you're saying that the pattern is about your mother and like you not feeling safe to kind of have your own space, that it's going to be taken away by her? Let me know if that's right. Um, oh, so then she's actually, there is a kind of, and I mean, think of that. I'm safe, I'm good. No, I'm not safe. I'm safe, I'm not safe. I'm safe, I'm not safe. How can you start to create a sense of safety in yourself, connecting to yourself, understanding your needs and what that stability and consistency, and how you can start bringing that into your life? New thoughts, new feelings. And the big one's going to be the beliefs. Do you feel like you deserve consistency? Do you believe that you're capable of keeping yourself safe, or you need somebody else to provide that, or whatever the thing is? Starting to dive into that can start to rattle and dissolve those beliefs that keep that consistency or stability outside of you, that feeling. um Oh my gosh, I love that your name's Abby too, and spelled the same. That's so funny, it would be, yeah, obviously my name is Rustin, and there's not it's a very unusual name, but, sometimes I'll see, like, people's first name is Rustin, I'm like, "This is so unusual because I rarely see anybody else with my last name, and then there's actually a couple of towns around the US with the town name Rustin, I'm like, this is amazing. We need a parade. If your last name is Rustin, you get to be in a little car on the parade. Everyone can be in the parade. But anyway, let's see. See, there I go. Nice person. We can't exclude anyone. I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings because then I'll be a bad person. Oh, the echoes. And just like, oh, there I go doing that thing. It doesn't rule me, but I got to be aware of it and conscious of it. Wow, I had no idea there's a California in Scotland. John M., did that help you understand, like, the future thing, like, getting more clear on what it is that you're afraid of? Is it like, "Okay, I should be able to figure out what bad thing's gonna happen, and if I can't figure it out, then I'm gonna be doomed," or something like that? And I'm just kind of, playing with different potentials. California, Scotland. Scotland is for sure, um, on the list. I think there's actually a Ruston village in, England, which is where oh, there goes my voice, hang on. Which is actually where my lineage is from. Um, oh, okay, John, there we go. Now we're pulling up something. So if you're afraid that something good oh, okay. I thought I misread it at first. I thought you said, "I'm afraid that something good will happen," which actually would be an interesting thing to look at. But, okay, well, what does it mean something good won't happen? And so, you know what I mean? Like, you gotta really just start to get into it and understand what really is at the seed of it. Okay, I think something good won't happen. So that would, another flip would be, I think only bad things are gonna happen to me the rest of my life. Why do you feel that way? Well, because there's a sense of powerlessness or lack of ability to control or have any sort of, you know, creator aspect to your life. So right away, I would look at um, a dynamic with an overbearing caregiver or a religious influence, because that's a thing too, right? It could be God or it can be your parents, but like some sort of like punishing, I got to be a really good kid or a really good girl, a really good boy, or the bad thing's going to happen. So starting to look at that structure, not judging it, saying, how dare you do this? Or this is so bad, or I can't believe this, I'm messed up. I can never change it. You can change it, but you have to be aware of it first. So looking at religion as a tone. There's no disrespect on it. There's no wrong or right, but just like, okay, yeah, I'm afraid that this power outside of me is judging me. And unless I do these things, this is kind of my echo of it, that I don't quite know. I can't really be me because if I do me, then that's bad. So this confusion, and then also a lack of ability to create anything in your life because you're dependent on this person saying yes or no. So I don't know if there's anything in your experience, John, if that has happened before, but let me know. No, I don't personally do affirmations. What I do, I just kind of what I've been working on is spending, like, right before I'm going to sleep, like, kind of feeling, my ideal self or just feeling like those emotions I'm looking for, right? Feeling them now, bringing them into my reality, and then the other thing too is when I wake up, like, asking myself and this is something I'm just kinda playing with, so I'll share it, but I'm not necessarily saying do it, but, like, what am I really afraid of? Like, kind of as I'm waking up, like, okay, what is it that is really holding me back? What am I really afraid of? What do I really do I think that I'm capable of this? So trying to get into the subconscious because again, your subconscious is going to show you kind of the gatekeepers, like, oh yeah, you got this belief, so you got to change it. But if consciously you're like, no, I feel fine, I am totally capable, but this thing just won't happen. You're kind of ignorant to yourself, in my opinion. Hello from Spain. I've been to Spain. I've been to Valencia. That's where the world championships were when I competed. Um, a limiting beliefs and attachment. You can make them disappear in the same way? Well, it is like that's a great way to say it. A limiting belief is an attachment to an idea of your capacity or your potential or who you are. And in my opinion, those limiting beliefs and the attachments of how they were formed is through the caregivers, through your models of those early on experiences. So your attachment and relating to that early on event, even though you were a kid at the time, is keeping that limiting belief alive. So, in my experience and from my personal journey, um, you realizing it with different eyes because you're not the same person you were when you were 6 or 5 or 4, whenever it happened, starting to see it as something, like, "Oh my god, there's a different meaning I could have put on that." That can open a whole doorway of, "Oh my god, I didn't even know. I've been living as if this thing was true because I thought it was." In my experience, it was very valid you had those experiences. And I can see that there was more to it. Maybe my caregivers were emotionally, cut off or emotionally immature, so seeing that as taking the blame and any sort of, responsibility off of you can really help you release that attachment to the idea of that they had about you. I hope that makes sense. Okay. Oh, thanks, Rick. Let's see. Hey, Abby, it said we've imagine the thing for it to manifest, right? People keep daydreaming all the time. Why don't they manifest anything? Well, because manifesting isn't revealing your thoughts in your outside life. It's revealing your beliefs, your inner world, which thoughts can kind of come and go and here and there. You can have great thoughts, be in a good mood. Oh, then you're over there, right? But your beliefs are constant, and that's what shapes your perceptions and what you're able to see, uh, your kind of rules of how you can operate, what's okay, what's not okay, what's for you, what's not for you. So, what manifests, what is tangible to us, is our inner energetics, our inner world, heavily feelings coming from beliefs. Um, so, why daydreams don't manifest is because you could feel in that daydream, but if you pop that little bubble and you come back, well, now you're sitting in all the attachments to go off of the earlier comment of those lower level emotions. So, lower level emotions being like shame, right? If you had a caregiver who told you were really bad, maybe you were playing outside and doing something they thought you shouldn't do. And this is more about like subjective stuff, not like if you're actually physically endangering yourself. But say that you were getting muddy and the caregiver thought, "Oh, you're such a burden. You make a mess and then I have to do this." Well, for one, they signed up for the deal. Two, you're a kid and you need a caregiver. You're not, like just starting to understand that how they saw you and the feelings you had about yourself based on their hierarchy of power, that could have caused shame. I am bad. I am bad. I'm doing bad would be guilt, but shame as a little kid, then that gets stored because it's very dangerous. You're like, oh no, the person who's can keep me alive is I'm not in good standard. So, Dr. Joe says this kind of like, well, he doesn't say it like this. I can't remember how he says it, but those intense emotional experiences are like branded because they're like, whoa, that could have been dangerous. I'm going to remember that and not do that anymore, not be me because that's dangerous. And again, you were just kind of playing in the mud, say. Um, so if you have that shame, I don't deserve what I want, I'm not good enough, I'm not valuable, and you have a daydream of abundance and secure love, well, the person, these don't coexist. You can let go of this and come up here to, higher level emotions and then be in that same energetic realm. But that's what's happening is the daydreams aren't powerful enough. They're a good start, but you've got to embody the emotions of the daydreams in your default as the majority of your day. If you can um, translate that to your body and then start moving in the world that way, that would be a completely different story. Okay, Abby, one of my beliefs is I don't deserve to be happy, and if I get what I And if I get can you I'm just like, I feel like I'm getting closer and closer. That popped my hip. That was nice. And if I get what I want, it will be taken away from me. Can you tell me what might be going on in the background? It's powerless and fear. So I would imagine that early on, there is some sort of experience where you were told, you were shown, or you saw an adult around you be treated really poorly and be told or messaged that they weren't deserving to be happy. If you got a pulse? Congratulations, you deserve to be happy. Your existence is incredibly important. Your existence proves your worth. Congratulations. There's that's what I need like da-da! You have done it. You are worthy to be happy now. If it was dangerous for you to be happy as a kid, if you had a caretaker who was really having a hard time, they were very angry, well, you needed to, "Ooh, I can't. Ooh, it's not safe for me to be happy here." So that could be an aspect to it. And then if you did have more of a volatile situation where things were taken away and there was no rhyme or reason, it was really inconsistent as to why they were taken away. And also too, it could be at you could have watched somebody this happen to them, then that model is that. And again, powerless would be, for one, some sort of trauma experience. And I'm reading a book now that is like a novel, like it's like a textbook, but it's really good because it's Dr. Peter Levine or Levin. I don't know how to say his last name, but the whole idea of trauma is we have this experience and our body, either real threat or a perceived threat. But in your body, it's a real threat, right? Either way, it doesn't matter. And your body, like just our human our instinct for survival wants to get away, or like if they a lot of times talk about the gazelle and the Serengeti and the lion, right? You gotta get out of there and save your life. But if you perceive, or if you were either physically held down or kept in, or blocked from expressing that, or you felt like you couldn't get away from that energy of that threat, then that energy just stays in your body and it's not able to process. And that creates the trauma, that powerlessness. There's actually something, there's fight, flight, and there's also tonic immobility. You don't hear that every day, meaning that with some animals, they'll actually just collapse, even though they're still alive. And maybe the lion takes them, but then in the process, they're actually able to escape eventually. So it kind of is like a anesthetic, but people can have that same thing, and then chronic episodes of that can make you feel like your body doesn't have the energy and stuff. So that powerlessness based on a fear, can you get conscious of what the fear is? Can you get more clarity on what situations that were happening that would lead you to perceive of that, and start to bring somatic work would be really helpful, because you got to process that emotion, because the body's going to be really, really, really important in all of this. Healing, right? Bringing all of ourselves together to heal, understand what we're really looking for, getting clear on that, and knowing we can take that action towards it by shifting our beliefs and just being in that energy. So I hope that helps. Um, okay, let's say. Hello, everyone that's saying hello. I'm like trying to read, but then getting so distracted, like going like pew 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 pew. Thank you everyone for coming today. I really do have a good time with this. Because it's like cozy outside. I haven't even drinking my coffee. Mm. And I'll do another one because I like, it's kind of funny for me because I think for me, what's coming up is with the whole course thing is like, this fear of, I don't want to pretend to be this person or be seen as this way, but it was brought to my attention. Well, I got to own certain parts of myself, because I do know, like from what y'all have shared on this channel of the videos of what has worked in my life. And I really do feel like, oh my gosh, like this has helped me. I feel like everyone should know, because I want everyone to cut off that old energy so you can create a life you really want. Like, I honestly feel like it's possible for everybody. And putting the course together, there's parts of me that are like, no, no, don't do that. And so I'm having to really be clear. Um, but looking at and really having to own things. So with the course, when I'm talking about it in throughout this, because I really do, I am I have included it in different ways, but it's just so funny because parts of me, it's like watching other people do it, and I'm like, "Oh god," I can just, like, hear the echoes of things wanting to come up of, like, I swear to God, this is not scamming, but it's kinda like a funny joke to me, I guess, in my head. But I'm gonna do another one, if anyone is interested in learning more about it. It is in the last parts. I still don't know exactly when I'm gonna be launching it, but, on that sign-up sheet, you get, like, the exclusive early price, before it goes up to its full price eventually. But, yeah, it gives more information, and then you can also email me if you have questions. But yeah, I'm plugging it because that's another thing too. If I genuinely am believing in it, I'm like, I want to help, and I really do feel this is helpful. Really owning it with myself and being in that energy. So I'm literally doing the things I'm asking you to do or suggesting you to do. Because even though I'm like saying, "Oh no, but that's too much. You're asking too much. You're doing." In the past, I would have being in it and like, no, I believe in this, and having that different belief shift and understanding of myself shift and seeing myself in a different way allows this to feel better, is the long-winded way to say it. Okay. Okay, writing my fears and letting them go to the trash, and after that, a big meditation is doing great things for me. That's great, yeah. I mean, meditations, it's like turning off the program, so it allows you to just kind of be without you, right? And the more you do that, the more you create that space, the more you can start to observe that you and let go of those parts. You're not like, "Oh, I can't believe that." You, like, own it, like, "Oh, man." Like, you have compassion for yourself, which I think is a beautiful thing. Yeah, Cosmos Spray, CPTSD is a real important, yeah, because it's an energy, right? If everyone's into the idea, then the truth of the universe that everything's vibration, which is like Nikola Tesla, right? Then and manifesting is you're gonna resonate with in your outer experience what's going on in your inner world. Then how is trauma put in such a like, nah, but not that energy? That's different, right? It's going to be a self-sabotaging by continue and again, but understandable, something really painful happened. You're not going to be like, you know what, Saturday, let's dive into it. But I guess where I had to get, and there are obviously different levels of experience and how they affected. But for my experience, understanding that not dealing with the pain, that was a choice, but I didn't have a choice to not feel pain because my not my current, but my previous circumstances were very painful. So by not dealing with this pain, it perpetuated another version of the pain. And until I addressed this, was I able to let go of both, if that makes sense. Okay. Thank you for sharing, Cosmo Spray, about that process you do. That's really cool. Oh, Alice, I always love your comments about, well, I guess in my head, it's like created a vision. That one day, I don't know if people saw it. I had posted something because my computer was being crazy, and I was like, "Oh, I'm having a very Mercury retrograde moment." And Alice was like, hopefully your the rest of today is more Freddie Mercury and less Mercury retrograde or something." It was just like so just I loved it. And yeah, and the Costa Rica retreat with the she also had the idea that, whenever it is that I do a live event, to have people rather than me draw my stick figures, have people act it out. And I'm like, this is the ultimate. That just sounds so fun, and also educational. So, I mean, I guess that's my vibe, like, if we're gonna go and, like, talk about serious stuff, we might as well have a little fun if we can. Maybe that's my Sagittarius moon just wanting to have a good time. Okay, so John M. Anger at my life in general seems to ache me up wake me up to my real self, and then I'm clueless how to sustain the state without it. Well, part of it could be a repression. So maybe there's way more anger in there, and that's okay. Angry about something. What is it you're angry about? Okay, there's some sort of injustice. Do you feel like you're not able to have a sense of justice, or, because again, all of this is outside of you. So the power is outside of you. So there's some kind of model that showed I don't have my power, they do. You know, that could have been childhood, and then I don't have my power, my boss does. I don't have my power, my partner does. I don't have my power, money does. If that makes sense. Oh, okay. Rick says there's a great book about our true nature called Three Magic Words that was penned in the 50s by U.S. Anderson. It's one of the most powerful texts I've ever read about the true nature of life. Interesting. I'm writing it down. I'm writing it down here. I was already good at, I was like, three big words. No, three magic words. Thank you for the book recommendation. This year, I've actually put a goal of books because I've never actually read, like, I'm very pew 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 pew. So I've never actually I haven't very many there's very few books I've read, like, start to finish. I listen a lot to things, but it's fragmented. But I really made a goal at the beginning of the year to read more books, start to finish, and got, organized on, different types of sections of my life books. I mean, it's really 2. It's like spirituality and psychology and that kind of stuff. How can I take in more info so that I can give more info to y'all? And then some other ones about how to create a better, like, communicate better. So, yeah, that's going on the list, but there's already a list. So, but I'm very curious about that, especially in the 50s. Like, I did that video around New Year's-ish or Christmas about, like, the 2 words that are not talked about in law of attraction that are, like, shocking because it's like thoughts, thoughts, thoughts. But or expectation, and even in the rest of the text, the guy says, and this was written in, like, 1890 or something. I'm like, "This has been along this," and I mean, obviously, we have ancient texts and stuff, but, and then the New Thought world is coming up, and it's very true. I think New Thought gets a lot of poo-pooing. It's a technical term, but, it's because it gets distorted and further from the essence of it. Oh, you just have to think these things. Oh, this thing can just change. You just have one little thought and your whole life changes. Now, if that thought completely penetrates and lets something go at the cellular level, absolutely, okay. But one thought change doesn't change your signature. And everything's energy. Like, I just really fail to understand what basis of reality or laws that we're working on. That's one thing I never want to bullshit, y'all. But, in that text, the guy's like, hey, yeah, whatever you're thinking or you expect, and whatever overrules that, the house of expectation is basically gonna reign. But, I can only imagine what the 1950s book will say, that all these things that have been around that really do work, but the misunderstanding and the distortion, of them and manipulation of them, I think a lot of times too, that gets more traffic, and then people are like, "This is bullshit," and it's like, "No, it's not." This is a distorted version of the truth, in my opinion. So, I don't have any pets at the moment. I would love to have a cat sitting on my lap right now. I also really love, dachshunds. I used to have a dachshund. In April, my girlfriend and I are going to Texas, and my best friend has 2 dogs, and I'm very excited about having some animal time, so that's very exciting. And I do love, like, when I go on walks, stray cat or they're not stray cats, they're cats that have a home and they wander around, and I love interacting with them. All right. Oh, yeah. So, thank you, Soul Love. I mean, are you late or you're at the perfect time and you can replay it, catch it on replay. But yeah, I'm glad you liked the email. I recently, if y'all, I don't know how many people here are on the Inner Circle email list, but I recently sent out one that actually was talking about my left shoulder and how I realized the symbolism of that injury really was a representation of kind of what happens to us, where something traumatic happens and we kind of grasp on to stabilize, because we're kind of like, whoa, out of certain, okay, stabilize, but then we stay at the same stabilization that we did in that traumatic event or that moment, and then that's very dysfunctional, as opposed to, okay, this is good for now, okay, how can I get back to regulated, if that makes sense. Oh, a little therapeutic kitty. I love it. Okay, FT, I have one question. If there was one thing you wish you would have understood sooner that transformed your life, would that be? That would be the idea that it's not what I do. I can't outwork my state of being. That's me doing a mic drop. And it's kind of funny because I literally on one of the pages, I'm creating the website for the course and stuff, and one of the websites, I'm, like, kinda sharing my experience, and, like, that is really what it is. I thought if I kept working really, really hard and then I kept struggling and I was so confused, and I'm like, "Oh, it's just me. I'm not good at this. I Nothing good happens to me. I can't have what I want, and I worked really, really hard." To completely not understanding, oh, when I look at these energies and I start understanding that I keep seeing the world through these frames, and Magda knows what I'm talking about because I talk about energy frames in the course. That I haven't really, there's a lot of things that I tie together in the course that I haven't really been able to like know where to put in a video. Um, oh my gosh. I get so distracted with the comments, but that would be the thing that's most powerful of like, oh, when I start to actually take my conscious awareness and my willpower, or when I did and start to do this, I start seeing like, oh, no wonder this was happening. It's coming from this. And so that started helping me feel more empowered that, oh, I was creating my reality, but I wasn't doing it consciously. And when I got conscious of the program, that's when I started to be able to more consciously create. I'm like, "Geez, I should write this down." Thank you for that question, FT, because that helped me understand myself more. Oh my gosh. Wieners or sausages, the sausage dogs, I know. They're so funny looking, but yeah, my little wiener dog, his name was Gus, and yeah, I had him for a long time, and I actually even took him. This is a rare known fact about me. Not only was I homeschooled that I haven't talked much about on the channel, but, I used to take my this is like total Aries vibes. I used to take my dog to wiener dog races. Now, I will say that one of the reasons I did it was because it did have prize money, and I was like, "My dog, he's a champion." And this was, I think, still when I was competing, so, like, I was like, me and him, right? So, I mean, he was obsessed with bouncy balls, so I was like, "This is perfect," and I mean, it was one part entertainment, but one part, like, my competitive mind was so intense at that time. But yeah, there was, like, 500 wiener dogs in this competition. They would put them like horse races. Oh my gosh. Yeah, awkward squad, I love it. Um, they would put them in little boxes, and then they would pull on the start, and then there they would go, and out of 500 wiener dogs, there was a little bit of drama because one of the wiener dogs looked like it was bred with a dog because it was, like, 4 inches taller than my dog, which wiener dog legs are like this, so the other dog's legs were like this. I mean, let's get let's get a DNA test over there, but anyway, so out of 500 dogs, he got 4th, which we didn't get a trophy, but it was okay. It was a good time. Am I still a little bit sad? Yeah. Wouldn't it have been funny? And the trophies were, like, as tall as this. This is, like, I don't know, like, 4 feet tall. They were, like, ridiculous. So I'm glad I could share that with you today because I feel like you needed to really know that about me. Oh, good. I'm glad the GS that you enjoy it and it's helping. All right. Are there any last questions? I'm glad you liked my pin drop, Joe. I'm like, I had to. The energy needed it. We needed completion. We needed vibrato. But are there any other questions before I get out of here and we all go and enjoy the rest of our day? Okay, we got one from Joe. Looking back at all the work that it takes to become a successful athlete, how much of it was inspired, flow state, effortless work, and how much of it was grinding pain that you had to do? Well, I will say most of my grinding and pain had a lot more to do with my beliefs than it did to do with what my body actually needed to get to that level. Yes, there was a lot of hard work physically, but a lot of it was me. A lot of my athletic career was trying to drag my personality, drag my sets of beliefs into a new reality. going back to FT2, that was another thing. Not realizing, oh, I have to drop the belief that I'm not good enough or that I don't deserve to be this level. So, and then take on that I do deserve this to be in this realm. And then that would make it a lot easier, a lot more natural, a lot more flow. So, at the time of my athletic career, I was still undervaluing myself and not feeling good enough, feeling like the kind of a Cinderella story, right? Like I'm not supposed to be here, but I fought so hard and I struggled so much, and that kind of storyline. But I think that if I could have the understanding that I do now, it would have been much more inner work, which my body would probably appreciate at this point. Um, and much more of that to step into seeing and perceiving of things differently. And, even, because my event was highly technical. So were parts of me not able to grasp it because I was in a structure of it has to be hard? Think about like a filter, or like a funnel. Like, is your funnel so tight that it barely trickles out? Or can you open up that funnel and then boom, it's easy. Oh, thank you, Joe. I appreciate that. So my experience was very much in alignment with my beliefs, which is I'm not good enough for here. But if I work and struggle and sacrifice my body, very martyr. So I would say my athletic career is kind of a martyr archetype. Um, so in the moments that I was at the top, I mean, I was basically at break point. But there were amazing flow moments. Like one of my best meets were my last two meets. Well, it was the U.S. Championships in 2008, and then proceeded, or after that was the 2008 Indoor World Championships, and those were my two best ones. And it really was like I was there and I was in it, but it's like you're not so focused on the out. You're just kind of it's in your peripheral and you're just in this kind of state. And it's really fun. It took many years to get there, but yeah, I was just trying to tap into that right before I got hurt because my container couldn't hold that. In my opinion, my container of experience, making the Olympic team would have been too great for my current belief system. So because I didn't know how to let go of my beliefs to keep up with receiving, oh my gosh, we're going full circle, receiving that experience of being an Olympian. So, yeah, so a lot of it, again, if I had that and could have adjusted that, let go of those beliefs to receive those new experiences that aligned. And I think that the flow states in effortless work would have been so much, more enjoyable and exciting, and more frequent, because I was team grind pain, martyr, had a lot of injuries. Ultimately, obviously, that's what ended my career was pulling my shoulder out of socket, which I didn't even know was a thing, and then breaking my foot right before the Olympic trials. So yeah, it really is amazing how we can hold ourselves back. And in the course, I know I keep saying this, but it's like really cool to actually like this is relevant. In the course, I talk about self-sabotage and how to see it differently and how to actually use self-sabotage to guide you towards what you're wanting as opposed to keeping you from it. Another pin drop. Oh yeah, thank you for being here. Is it Lucia? Is that how you say it? It's kind of funny because across the street when I was a little kid, um, he was older than me. He's older than my brother too, but so I was real little, but a neighbor across the street, his name was Santos. And he actually still lives in my parents' neighborhood. So really nice guy. Let's see. Thank you for sharing amazing content and knowledge with us. It's appreciated. Oh, it's really fun for me to share too, these things that I learned and that I'm like, oh my gosh, did you know this? Oh my gosh, did you know this? You've got to know this. This is wild. This is mind blowing. That's how I feel right now reading that new book. So hopefully I'm going to be able to start to bring that into videos. But sometimes I get a little bit confused on like, okay, how do I share this without making a 3-hour video? Maybe I don't. Maybe I do one day. So anyway, okay, well, I think that's all for me today. I love all of y'all. Honestly, you all deserve happiness. You all deserve to have a peaceful, easy breezy, enjoyable life that's filled with people who love you. And reflect. Well, that's one way. Yeah, reflect. I was going to say reflex, but that's interesting. That beautiful way you see and feel about yourself back to you. I really do believe that. I'm going to do one more shout out from a course because I also am very proud of it. And it feels really good, Magda, to hear you share those experiences because it is uncomfortable to put so much work into something and, send it out and then not know what the experience is. So, anyway, okay, well, I will be sending out and sharing a new video on Monday that's going to show you the 2 steps for creating new reality. And I hope you like it. Again, love y'all guys. Thank you so much for being here. This was really fun. I'll probably do more of these because who doesn't want to just hang out and chat and have a little sense of community? So, I mean, for me, it really is a big sense of community. So, anyway, okay, enough for me. I'm going to go drink some coffee. Take care. Bye.